So Dr. Joe Schwarcz, who joins us usually Tuesday afternoons, is on the line. He is host of the Dr. Joe Show, which runs Sundays at 3 here on CJAD 800, and also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society. Joe, I sent you an article that says eating chicken may increase your mortality risk, and it talks about an amount of 300 grams, so the equivalent of 3 servings. That's it, three servings of chicken per week. Tell me what the story here is.
Okay, so of course I looked into this, and it isn't exactly like that. And so often the case, when you scratch the surface, you see that it's really quite different. So the story made headlines because the researchers said that eating at most 255 grams of chicken or pork a week is what we should be doing. But this was taking a look at environmental consequences. Now, we know that eating red meat is certainly a negative in terms of the environment because of all the feed that has to be grown for the cows. And, of course, fertilizer and all of that is energy intensive. So cows are a burden in terms of the greenhouse effect. And on top of that, they also burp out methane, which is a greenhouse gas. So what these researchers were interested in was seeing what is the maximum amount of meat that we can eat that is not going to have a negative impact on the environment. That was the crux of this study.
Okay, hold on a second, because I have a sentence here that says, when it comes to meat consumption, participants who died due to complications with gastrointestinal cancers tended to be the ones eating the most meat per week compared to other causes.
No, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So what this particular study, in terms of environmental consequences, said that if you really want to limit the impact on the environment, don't eat more than 255 grams. That's about 9 ounces of meat a week. And that should be mostly chicken and pork. All right. So that's the environmental side of it. But then we also have the health issue of eating meat. And there are a number of concerns there. Red meat, for example, contains a number of compounds due to cooking that are carcinogenic. When you fry the meat or when you barbecue the meat, even when you bake it at high temperatures, you produce compounds called polycyclic hydrocarbons. And these are known cancer-causing substances. If the meat is processed meat, then on top of that, you have to worry about the nitrites that are used as preservatives. So when you factor all of that in, then you get down to the minimum of meat that shouldn't cause any problems. And again, we're getting down to about 250 grams. However, you also have to take into account that we have a requirement for protein. And that is mostly satisfied by eating meat for most people. And the 250 grams of meat a week is not going to satisfy that. And there's a real concern about inadequate protein consumption these days, especially in seniors, because if you don't have enough protein, your muscles start to break down. It's called sarcopenia, and that can lead to falls. And we know that in the case of seniors, when you fall and break a hip, you die within about 1 year of that accident. So you need to also be conscious of the amount of protein that you need. Now, certainly it is possible to get your protein intake without eating any meat at all. Vegan and vegetarian diets can do that. But you have to then make sure that you're eating a lot of beans and you're eating a lot of lentils and you're eating soy products so that altogether you can get that, 60 to 80 grams of protein that you need a day. So while, certainly there's good science behind all of the detrimental effects of meat in terms of the environment and health, there are also the benefits of the protein intake. So someone who says, well, I'm just going to cut down on almost eliminating meat because of these scary studies that show that, people who eat lots of meat have earlier death. they may be going from the frying pan into the fire, as it were, because unless they compensate to make sure that they're getting enough protein from elsewhere, from plant sources, they're going to be in short. And we also know that people who have an inadequate of protein intake die earlier. And that is also, that's a significant finding. So certainly it is important to be aware of the fact that meat has some very detrimental qualities. But you have to put it into proper context. I mean, we still need to have a proper diet with adequate protein intake.
So the idea of limiting that meat, be it white or red, whatever, to less than 250, just on average, that's a couple of servings a week, and substitute everything else you mentioned, all those other protein sources like beans, like lentils, that'd be okay as far as health risks are concerned?
Sure. I mean, and of course it is possible to do that. Obviously, there are a lot of vegans and vegetarians who, have perfectly healthy lives without ever eating meat. But for someone who is used to eating meat, and then they hear all of these concerns, and they say, "Well, I'm going to cut down." They are very often not aware of the fact that they have to compensate for that in other ways. And if you're going to just cut down meat so dramatically, you better start boning up on your quinoa and your the tofu stir fry and your bean stews.
Okay. Ooh, bean stews. That sounds great. Hey, Joe, anywhere else to get this protein from?
There's no question that meat is the best source, and not only the best source in terms of amount, but also in terms of absorbable proteins. They're much easier absorbed from meat than from plant sources, so you have to eat more plant protein to have the same effect as you would get from meat. But the main vegetable sources are the legumes, your lentils and your beans. Soy is a very good source, and as I mentioned, so is quinoa.
Okay.
But you have to eat more of those than you would eat a comparable amount of meat. But also, as we've talked before, the way that you cook the meat is also very important. You don't want to expose it to high temperatures. So, for example, when you make a stew, when you're essentially cooking at the boiling point of water, which is 100 degrees, you do not form those cancer-causing compounds that you would form if you throw the meat on the barbecue or under the broiler.
Or a frying pan or in the oven, I see. Okay. All right, so you're kind of describing slow cooking here for all this kind of stuff you're going to do if you're going to use that meat. The lower the temperature, the longer you cook it, the better it is.
That's right.
Okay.
And
so complicated.
You can make a stew with minimal amount of meat and lots of vegetables in there, and still get your protein content. But you've got to be aware. There are tables, of course, that you can look up for the protein content of those vegetables. And nutrition is a complex business.
Sure is.
And whenever you're told, well, just cut it down to eating 9 ounces of meat a week. That's a bit too simplistic of a way of looking at things.
Got to leave it there, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks,
last thing, white meat or dark meat chicken doesn't matter, right?
No, chicken is
chicken is chicken.
And all of these foods now that tell you that it has extra protein. That Khloe Kardashian just came out with the popcorn that has extra protein.
Yeah.
This is all nonsense.
Pass. Dr. Joe Schwarcz. Dr. Joe, thank you.